The sky was bruised with dark storm clouds. The wind howled like a wounded animal, and snow lashed across the mountains as if nature itself had lost control. And in the middle of that blizzard, a small girl named Elara stumbled through the white wilderness, abandoned by her stepmother as though she were nothing more than a burden, something disposable, someone whose heartbeat didn't matter. Her tiny feet sank in the snow, her clothes soaked through, her lips turning blue, yet in her terrified eyes there was a faint shimmer of hope, the kind of fragile hope only a child can carry, hope that someone, somehow, might hear her cry. The blizzard swallowed every sound, every breath, until suddenly the ground trembled lightly beneath her as distant hoofbeats echoed across the frozen hills. Out of the swirling storm, a lone cowboy emerged, pushing through the icy wind with stubborn determination. Snow crusted on his hat and shoulders, and eyes that carried the weight of a past filled with pain and understanding. He saw her collapse and rushed forward, scooping her into his arms with the protectiveness of a father who had finally found someone to save, whispering through the roaring wind, "You're safe. I'm your family now," words that wrapped around her like warmth itself. She was barely conscious, her body cold as the snow she lay on. But when he pulled her close and shielded her with his coat, she felt, for the first time, the comfort of someone who cared. His name was Cole, a solitary cowboy who had spent years crossing empty plains with no one waiting for him at the end of the trail. But now everything in him came alive as he held the half-frozen child. The blizzard fought him with every step as he carried her back toward his ranch, his breath burning, his boots sinking deep into drifts. But he refused to slow down, driven by a fierce promise he didn't yet understand. By the time he reached the ranch, the world outside had turned into a wall of white. But inside the fire crackled warmly, and he laid Elara near it, wrapping her in blankets, rubbing her hands, whispering encouragement as if his voice alone could keep her alive. Slowly, painfully, her eyelids fluttered open, and she whispered with trembling fear, "Will you give me back?" And Cole answered without a moment's hesitation, "Never! You're my family now." And at those words, something inside her, something long frozen by cruelty, melted. But inside that fragile peace waited a dark truth, a hidden reason why her stepmother had taken her into the storm to die. Something that would soon pull Cole and Elara into a deeper battle than the blizzard itself. For the storm they had survived was only the beginning. When dawn spread gold across the snow-covered land, Elara finally breathed without shaking, but the fear inside her still clung like frost. And Cole, who had never let anyone into his heart, found himself unable to leave her side. He saw her flinch at every sudden sound, saw the way she held his sleeve as though any moment someone might come to take her away. And it ignited inside him a resolve stronger than steel. He needed answers, needed truth, needed to know why a woman would abandon a child in a storm meant to kill her. But before facing that truth, he introduced Elara to the townsfolk who lived near the ranch. Though their eyes softened at the sight of her, their hearts trembled with a silent warning. They all sensed the shadow following her. One day, while riding into town for supplies, an elderly woman stopped Cole and whispered, "You saved that child, but her stepmother is dangerous beyond measure." And those words stayed with him like ice in his spine. When he returned home, Elara ran to him, frightened and desperate, pleading, "If you take me back, she'll try to kill me again." And Cole knelt down, placing his hands gently on her shoulders, and said with fierce conviction, "No one will ever take you from me." But before he could reassure her further, a rider came tearing down the road toward the ranch, shouting, "Cole, you're in trouble. She's gone to the city marshal. She's saying you kidnapped the girl." Anger flared inside Cole, but fear did not. Because he knew innocence didn't shout, guilt did. Still, the law didn't chase truth. It chased noise. And her stepmother was screaming loud. Cole saddled his horse immediately, lifting Elara in front of him, saying, "You're coming with me. I won't let them twist this." And together they rode into town. the cold wind biting, but the fire in their hearts stronger. A crowd had already gathered, drawn by drama more than justice, and Elara's stepmother stood at the center of it with false tears and venom in her voice as she cried, "He stole my daughter." Elara trembled, but Cole squeezed her hand and murmured, "I'm right here," giving her courage she never had before. Then Cole spoke, telling the truth of the blizzard, of the abandonment, of how he found her freezing and alone. But the crowd wavered until the elderly woman stepped forward, her voice trembling as she confessed. Her stepmother left her to die for inheritance. She wanted the child gone, and the truth struck the town like thunder. The marshal ordered the stepmother's arrest, and the crowd parted as Cole and Elara stood together, free, safe, victorious. Elara turned to Cole with tears that no longer came from fear but from relief and whispered, "You're my home." And Cole wrapped his arm around her shoulders as the snow began to fall again. Gentle this time, peaceful, no longer a threat but a blessing. The weeks after the blizzard passed, like a quiet miracle in Emily's life. Every morning, she woke to the smell of coffee drifting through the cabin, the warm crackle of the fireplace, and the soft hum of Jake's voice as he tended the horses before dawn. There had been a time when she woke to fists pounding her door, to a stepmother's cold voice reminding her she wasn't wanted, to a life where every breath felt borrowed. But here, on Jake's ranch, peace wasn't a dream. It was real, carved into every sunrise that spilled over the Montana hills, stitched into every gentle act Jake offered without expecting anything in return. Emily helped around the ranch as her strength returned. She fed the chickens, brushed the horses, even learned how to ride properly. Jake never rushed her, never demanded anything. He just guided with a quiet patience that Emily had never known. And slowly, without realizing it, she began to smile, really smile. One afternoon, Jake found her standing outside by the fence, watching the pasture with a far-off look. She didn't notice him approach. She was somewhere inside herself, wrestling shadows that hadn't yet died. "You okay?" he asked softly. Emily blinked and nodded, but Jake knew the truth. She had started talking more, laughing more, but the wounds that lived deep inside her weren't gone. One night, thunder rolled across the plains unexpectedly. The sky flashed and Emily's breath froze. She curled on the cabin floor, her hands over her ears, the old terror flooding back, memories of her stepmother locking her outside during storms, telling her thunder was punishment for being born. Jake ran to her and dropped to his knees. "Emily, look at me. You're safe. No one's hurting you. I'm right here." She clung to him like the world was collapsing, and little by little the storm passed, inside her and outside. After that night, Emily realized something. Jake wasn't just protecting her life. He was rebuilding her heart piece by piece, giving her back what the world had tried to break. But peace doesn't last forever, not in the West. One cold morning, a sheriff arrived at the ranch with 2 deputies. Emily froze as soon as she saw them. Jake stepped in front of her instinctively. The sheriff took off his hat. "We found her stepmother," he said. "She told us Emily ran away. She's claiming guardianship." Emily's whole body shook. The idea of going back, the idea of facing that woman felt like being thrown into that blizzard again. "She's lying," Emily whispered. "She left me to die." The sheriff nodded slowly. "We believe you, but legally we need a statement, and you'll need a guardian until you're of age." Jake didn't even hesitate. "She stays with me." The sheriff studied him. "It's not that simple, Jake. You're a single man. The court will want proof you can support her. Protect her, provide a stable home." Jake stepped closer, his voice firm.
"She already has a
home here with me." Emily had never heard him speak like that, full of fire, full of certainty. The sheriff sighed. "There'll be a hearing in 3 days. Bring her, tell the truth. I'll do what I can." When they left, Emily's knees gave out. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. "Listen to me," he said firmly, lifting her chin so she had to look at him. "No one is taking you anywhere. I promised you that night in the blizzard, you're safe with me. That hasn't changed. It never will." For first time since the sheriff arrived, Emily breathed. Over the next 3 days, Jake prepared everything: documents, Income statements, repair receipts for the ranch, even testimonies from townsfolk who'd seen him take care of Emily. The town doctor wrote that Jake had saved her life. The storekeeper wrote that Emily looked healthier, steadier, happier than ever before. But it was Emily's own voice that mattered the most. In the courtroom, she faced her stepmother, smiling sweetly for the judge, lying through her teeth, pretending innocence. Emily's hands shook, but Jake gave her a small nod from across the room, telling her without words, "I'm here. Speak your truth." Emily stepped forward and told everything. The neglect, the cruelty. The night she was dragged into the snowstorm and abandoned. The moment Jake found her half frozen. The judge listened in silence, and when she finished, Jake stood and spoke only one sentence. "She deserves a family that doesn't throw her away." The courtroom went still. The judge looked at Emily, then at Jake. Finally he nodded. "Custody granted. She stays with Mr. Lawson." Emily burst into tears, not of fear, but of relief so deep it shook her entire body. When she ran to Jake, he wrapped his arms around her, lifting her off the floor like she weighed nothing. "You're home now," he whispered. "For good." That evening, back at the ranch, Emily stood at the porch, watching the sunset wash the sky in gold. For the first time in her life, the world felt warm, safe, hers. Jake stepped beside her, handing her a cup of cocoa. "You did brave today," he said quietly. "I'm proud of you." Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Jake, I thought I'd never belong anywhere. But you made me feel like I do." He smiled softly. "You belong here with me. You're my family now." The wind blew gently across the fields. Emily closed her eyes and let the truth settle into her soul, something she had wanted her whole life. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't unwanted. She wasn't a burden. She was home. If my journey touched your heart, please subscribe.